All right, so we go back inside, and they're doing their strikes. They're using their strikes, and they go through it. It's like a draft. You know, this person gets the paper they pick for over to the other side, and then they're finished, and all of a sudden there's a sidebar. And then the jury, you know, they're sidebarring over there for quite some time, and then they decide to let the jury go use the bathroom. And then they decide to take the defendants out of the courtroom and put them into the other room. And then they decide that we're going to have to, the prosecution claims that there is a gender bias with our jury, and there is a race bias with our jury. They say this is the exact same number of male to females as the jury last time. And so now we have to go through and explain every single person they striked off that jury, one by one. I thought that those strikes, you didn't have to explain that. And then they keep coming back to one juror. They keep going back and forth and coming back to 296. And it seems to me that 296 is the government's ringer, and they're going to get they're going to get that person who's a male, right?
Yeah,
a young male back onto the jury. And, you know, they're going through and they're like, well, we understand this one. Aren't these strikes supposed to be for any reason? And they're saying, well, I had a gut feeling that this gentleman wasn't telling the entire truth. And they're saying, well, a gut feeling's not a good enough reason. Aren't our strikes? Why do we need to give a reason for our strikes? Why did the defendants get taken into the back room? Oh, and then while the defendants are in the back room, they're screaming, water, water, we need water back there. And then the marshals come and get the water. And then finally the marshals come out and they're like, can we bring them back? This is taking a very long time. As we go through, so right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different people that they're still looking at, 5 out of 14.
She's going to get
20 minutes left.
Almost 20 minutes left, and she's decided that she's going to go and look onto her computer where she can see things a little better,
or make a phone
call and find out exactly how she's supposed to explain this off so that she doesn't get in trouble and she can do whatever she wants to do in there. Have you ever had to explain why you're striking a person off the jury? And then they say, oh, there's a gender bias and a racial bias? There's a gender bias against males. So they want to have to explain. And what is it, 8 to 4? 8 males to 4 women. But there's a gender bias, and then there's also a racial bias, and then we end with 5 people, only 3 of those go to the gender bias and 2 of them go to the racial bias, and there's good explanations for all of these. So what exactly is going on here?
Why don't you mention also about the disparity in the notes from the prosecution to the defense, where they're completely opposite of each other, and yet I'll let you talk.
Okay, so they're arguing back and forth on the notes, and the prosecution is saying, well, this person answered this way, and the defense is saying, no, they answered the other way, and the prosecution won't give it up. And even the judge agreed with the defense at that time, saying, yes, they answered it this way. They're arguing over the way these people answered their questions because they're trying to prove a bias that isn't there. They're upset because they didn't get their questions answered. They didn't do a good job at asking their questions. They didn't get the answers that they wanted. And so now they're saying that there's 2 different types of bias, and we might not get our picks. So here we go back into the courtroom. We'll see what she's come up with now that she's had time to make phone calls and decide how she's going to answer this to make sure she doesn't get herself into trouble.
He said twice there's a level of deception taking place here.
One of the defense attorneys twice said there's a level of deception here with some of the answers with some of these jurors, and that's why they striked them. A gut feeling. And she's saying, oh, that's not enough. Well, if we're sitting there and you're lying to me and I have a gut feeling and I want you off, why is that not enough? Why do we have to explain our strikes? I have never in my life had to see this, and I don't think anyone else has. So we're about to go back in and find out what the final decision, if we get our